Well, first of all, Edwin will beat me to death if I let her get away with saying I'm the director of engineering. I'm the director of research and development, but that's okay. That's not my fault. I didn't submit that. Edwin, I swear I didn't submit that. Oh, man. I should have slept last night. How are you all doing today? I don't know why you're all here, but I really appreciate that, especially since the last couple of talks I gave are all basically in the exact same vein. It's me getting unhappy about something in general and just kind of ranting about it because it pisses me off, and I think that other people should, share the fact that I'm pissed off. I think we should all be a little bit more pissed off because, quite frankly, the world out there sucks, and we all suck, and that's why I'm here to talk to you, because we suck and we should all get better. And quite frankly, if nobody ever tells us how much we suck, we will never try any harder. At least I know I don't. So we'll just go ahead and, oh my God, who left slide transitions on? That'll be fun today. All right, so a quick review. What on earth are we all thinking? How many IP addresses do you have on you right now? I mean, like, right now. Okay, maybe not just IP addresses. I mean, okay, I've got the Wi-Fi on my phone's got one, and then the cellular's got one, and then I was sharing it to some other devices last night over USB, so I had like 3 on just my phone. When I think about MAC addresses too, I've got a smartwatch on, got a Fitbit on, I gotta get the work week hustle with all my friends, right? It's really important. We're just completely surrounded by devices and connectivity all the time, and we all know it, but we're not really handling the security for any of that stuff. We're just like, it's fine. I mean, just because I have 10 devices connected to my personal area network doesn't mean that I'm less secure. In some magic fairyland that we all convince ourselves that this is okay as we buy the newest gadget from Crapple or whatever. Man, these slide transitions are really going to help me lengthen out my talk. I really appreciate that. So realistically, what do you have in your environment at any given moment, right? You've got cellular, you've got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all of these different things that we're reasonably cognizant of, but what else do you have in your environment? Okay, some of the phones have NFC, some of them have infrared, sometimes there's an infrared laser mic pointed at the window of your office building. I guess I'm in San Francisco, not DC, so maybe that one doesn't play as hard, but in DC they're like, oh shit. Okay, Zigbee, Z-Wave, all these, control systems, alarm systems for your house, UHF radio, VHF radio. I put my UHF radio down, but there's quite a bit of that going around here, especially because they gave me a radio. I don't know why. So I have an awful lot of spare time because I didn't spend much time on this. So, you just sit there and you play with the radios, and it's just constantly penetrating the world around us. So many different ways to connect from one device to the next, whether it's voice or data or whatever it happens to be. It's just completely surrounding us all the time, yet we all think that we have a handle on network security. As long as we're talking about Ethernet, right? As long as the only thing that exists is Ethernet, we've totally got the problem solved because, oh wait, no, we're not even close to a handle on that, are we, kids? Okay, yeah, so we could just keep talking about different technologies all day, right? I actually was writing this list, and then we put it on the slide, and then we realized we couldn't read anything, so it's just depressing how many technologies are out there to connect us that we're just simply not monitoring. Is she doing a live caricature? Because that would be awesome. That's not disturbing at all. So what's securing you at all right now today, right? We all are in network security or some kind of application security. I can see you too. Okay, we're all in some kind of security. We've all got all this stuff to protect us. We've got VPNs, firewalls, all of this garbage, right? That's theoretically going to protect us on our local network. Maybe stop a couple of the bad things from coming into the internet. A whole lot of my friends just kind of block all of China, and they say that works pretty well. I don't know. IP addresses are very confusing to a layer 2 guy. I just stick with MAC addresses. Just block all devices made in China. That definitely solves the problem. But does this really make any sense at all? How much do you really see with all this traditional stuff? I mean, we've got some really impressive companies making things right now to just do some amazing things. My friend, the first thing he does on every pen test, is he tries to make an SSH backdoor through port 443. And assuming that establishes, he immediately fails them because here's a protocol going out on the wrong port. You're clearly not checking for anything like that. And it's just like, well, it's encrypted, we're good. That's not egress filtering, right? That's an instant fail. But they're like, well, we have a firewall. It went out 443, it was encrypted. What more can you ask for? Well, maybe make sure it's the right protocol. I mean, it's not like companies don't exist that make this kind of gear, but we don't even use that, really. So, what do we actually see today? Okay? So what is really being monitored, right? It's Ethernet. You look at the enterprise environment, you're monitoring an Ethernet network. You're monitoring maybe Wi-Fi, maybe in both bands, probably not. Okay, so just the amount of chuckling in the audience requires me to take a poll. Who's got Wi-Fi installed? Most everybody. Okay, now keep your hand up if you have a Wi-Fi intrusion detection and prevention system. And keep your hand up if it is doing full-time monitoring and not access point duties. 1.5? I don't know if you count. I think you might be full of it. I know you too well. What do you have?
You mean me personally?
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't really use Wi-Fi. But
Okay, so he doesn't use Wi-Fi, but he's got a monitoring system 7x24. That is impressive. That is really important, okay? The point is does this list seem a little bit short? I could have sworn there was a slide earlier in the presentation. I've got a very short memory. I didn't sleep much. There might be more to life as we know it than Cat 5 and 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. Might be. There's definitely like 100 and some odd little 2.4 gigahertz drones that they passed out. Did anybody else notice that those were on channel 13 for Wi-Fi? Just above the spectrum where all the access points are here. Anybody else have a hack RF with them? Anybody else pull the batteries out of their remote before they got themselves into trouble? Little things. So, what about you personally? Forget the enterprise. They've got all the cool toys, right? What do you have at your house? I know what I have at my house. It's an embarrassing list. What about like a Nest? Nice little thermostat connected to your Wi-Fi and your heating and cooling system. Probably legit, right? Drop cam? Some kind of a physical security system or a garage door opener? What are all these devices? They're all completely next to impossible to update for the standard consumer, completely unpatched to any vulnerabilities. I know that every time I plug in my drop cam to reconfigure it for different Wi-Fi network, it says like Linux 2.419 or something awful like that. It says it in the USB descriptor, and I just like, I paid money for this too, right? So what do you do with all this stuff? You have all of these things constantly surrounding you. Who's monitoring their home network? Are you monitoring the Wi-Fi airspace in your house? How about Bluetooth? What about that really sweet security system? It's only $99 installed, right? We're just going to put these wireless sensors on all your doors and windows, and it's completely foolproof for the installer who has a third grade education, right? What about a garage door opener? Do you lock the man door that lets you in from the garage into the house? Or do you just kind of, well, you know, there's this heavy door. I'm sure nobody could possibly replay my garage door code, right? We don't really look at all of this stuff. We almost pretend that it's invisible. And it's really, really disturbing to me the amount of technology that all of us use every day that we completely take for granted that it is horrifically insecure. If you're really bored, I highly recommend YouTube. Not only are there awesome cat videos, but you can find all kinds of stuff, SDR being my personal favorite hobby at the moment. You can find all kinds of great uses for software-defined radios, things like HackRF and BladeRF, to not just make yourself a fake cell tower, but to open car doors and things like that. They've got some really great videos on how to energize a NFC tag from far away and replay it to something close by so that, like, you're in your house and your car key's in your house, but I can point and energize your car key, read it, and then replay it into the door and just open your car and walk away. That's probably bad. I mean, my car's not that nice personally, so I mean, it might be good for me. I have a 2007 Altima, so like if it was stolen, maybe it would be better off, but we'll talk later. Yeah, there's some really, really entertaining car hijacking SDR videos out there, and I'm not going to steal anybody else's thunder, but I've spent hours watching just the car hijacking ones, and it's awful. Awful. So we've only been talking so far about what I would call approved or authorized devices. That's things that you deployed on purpose, right? Devices that you know exist. Like, I know I bought this watch. I might not necessarily consider it a network device, but I know I bought this watch. I know that I have a cell phone on me. I know that I've got 3 access points in my backpack, don't ask. But what about everything else? There's all the things that you intentionally bought and deployed into the network. What about the things that, like, well, you know, marketing people all use Macs, right? That's a fairly standard thing because artists use Macs. And I guess some people who pretend to be hackers. A lot of people use things like that. And you know, at Best Buy, when you buy the MacBook Pro, the sales guy's always going to tell you that this thing works way better with the Apple Airport Extreme access point, right? So you have to buy one of those too. So you get the dual band AC one that's completely default, wide open, unencrypted, and you just plug it in, and you know, the Mac auto connects to the airport, and you say, I set up my own network. And then the marketing team proceeds to use that to share files because, you know, the corporate network's only 802.11n, and, you know, these PowerPoints are really big. They take a long time to transmit, so we're going to use this AC access point because it's a lot faster. And I mean, we set it up ourselves. IT doesn't even have to know. It's fine. Right? That happens in enterprises more than a little, and that's not even considering the actually malicious devices that are placed, like if I were to, say, work for a company that makes penetration testing hardware occasionally, and I were to, like, go and pretend to be a repair guy and put a little Mac bypass transparent bridge man-in-the-middle device behind your printer and tell everybody it's a power conditioner or whatever. I mean, I don't do that. I sit in an office and type, mostly on IRC, but don't tell my boss that. So malicious devices. You've got your rogue access points, your very favorite, you know, people planting access points on your network, whether they are your marketing team, your employees, or whether they are some guy that broke in. I used to do Wi-Fi security professionally for just about a decade, actually, and my favorite thing to do in a room of people doing Wi-Fi security was to ask this question: who has seen an actually deployed maliciously rogue access point? Like somebody broke into the building, deployed an access point, and then left the building. Okay, so you're a spook, you're a spook, and that was easy. Thanks, guys. I normally do this in DC, and nobody's ballsy enough to raise their hand. But the truth is 99% of the time, it's just deployed by some employee. It's an accident, whatever. Who did not deploy it themselves and saw a maliciously placed rogue access point. Like, oh yeah, I saw it, I just plugged it in. That doesn't count. Good show, though. I will choose my words more carefully for this particular audience. So things like Wi-Fi keyloggers. We actually had a rogue device scavenger hunt at my office 2 weeks ago, and we planted a whole bunch of stuff and just kind of left it around just to give everybody the opportunity to try to play James Bond, try to find all this weird spy gear. And I mean, this stuff it's tiny, it's undetectable, it could connect to your Wi-Fi guest network, it could offer an access point that's not connected to your network in any way, it could connect to the neighbor's Wi-Fi guest network and just be exfiltrating passwords all day long. What are you doing about things like that? And don't even tell me you didn't know they existed, because nobody here is shocked in any way as I'm describing this device. But I'm willing to bet that nobody's actually actively doing anything for that unless you happen to have silvered window film in your environment, in which case, again, spook. Even things as simple as a Wi-Fi pineapple. Okay, Wi-Fi Pineapple, just for those who don't know, is an access point that simply says yes all of the time. I'm looking for this AP. Oh yeah, that's me. I'm looking for this AP. Oh yep, that's me too. And it just collects all of the clients to it. Okay, so we talked about what traditional network security is. That's, firewalls, antivirus, HIDs, all this basic stuff that's on your network. As soon as all of your clients are connected to somebody else's network, whether it's the neighbor's guest network or an attacker-controlled network, what do all of those network security devices see? Nothing. Now, I know that we're all pretty smart, and we all know how to connect our laptops to different access points, and we can connect our cell phones to different access points, and we can turn on the hotspot feature on our cell phone, and we can connect our laptop to it, and things like that. We're not the only ones that can do that. The norms can do it too. I know, like the muggles, they can actually do this. They know how to turn hotspot on their iPhone and connect their laptop to it, most of the time completely unencrypted, right? But they can do this stuff. But who's actively preventing it? Show of hands? All right, I spooked the 3 spooks because they're not even raising their hands anymore. That means I'm doing my job, and I like that. So what's the problem? The problem is as always, our lexicon. Think about password versus passphrase. As long as I say password, what comes into your mind? One word. Something reasonably short. So we're going to make it ridiculously complex. We're going to replace random letters with numbers and add special characters and make it all elite speaky. And it's going to be so bloody complex that you can't remember it. But that's cool because we know you're going to make a short password anyway. So we're just going to force you to change it every 37 seconds. So you're just going to put a new sticky note under your keyboard every day and remember it. Whereas if I say passphrase, you realize that you can take a different set of song lyrics from your favorite artist every 90 days or so, and you end up with a 30 frickin' character password that is painfully easy to remember and still infinitely more difficult to crack than that 8 character gibberish you were trying to play character replace with.
Actually, I think they do take some password crackers.
Some of the password crackers actually do look for, standard English stuff now. But even still, when you're looking at a 30-character passphrase, brute forcing it is painful. And then you add in little things like proper punctuation. My mother was an English teacher, so there's typically a couple of commas in my passwords, possibly a question mark. The difference between is and are is very important. Sometimes I have to correct the song lyrics because Mom would not be proud. But we're not talking about passwords. We're talking about network security. So what do people really talk about when they're talking about network security? Normally the terms are trusted and untrusted. That would be the green ports on the firewall and the red ports on the firewall. What do those actually mean? Does it mean you can trust this side and not this side? Well, that's the way we teach it, right? But that's not correct. That's not even close to correct. It's pretty much literally, this is inside my network and this is outside my network. You have no idea if what inside your network is actually any more trustworthy than what's outside your network. But you're going to totally draw a randomly placed line in the sand and say, this is my network perimeter, and everything on the outside is bad, and everything on the inside is good, and as long as they don't talk to each other, we're straight. But does that work? No. But is that what we keep doing? Yeah. So think about the latest trends in technology. You got your smartphones, your tablets, your BYOD. I am not going to name names, but the BYOD thing is super awesome, right? It means that the corporation doesn't have to own any assets anymore. So as long as the corporation doesn't need to own any assets anymore, we don't have to worry about depreciation and shit like that. So we can simply say, okay, I'm going to give you $1,500. You go buy whatever you want and just go ahead and connect it to my network. And it's totally great. And if you want to bring in your personal phone and just connect it to the network too, that's great. You can get corporate email on there. You're just going to download our MDM agent. It's going to make sure you're encrypted. Everything's fine. Well, maybe that's not the smartest way to do it. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to take the inside, the trusted, and we're going to take the outside, the untrusted. We're going to make another little VLAN network perimeter segment, and we're going to keep all that on the outside. and we're going to let all the BYOD devices connect to that. But you can't reach any corporate resources from there, so what you're going to do is you're going to VPN from that outside spot right back into the middle of the network where everything's trusted, and you have full access to everything on the inside, and that'll work perfectly. So we're going to segment you by putting you outside and giving you a direct tunnel to the inside so that you're inside the network. Who's seen that network design? Okay, that's almost everybody. Who thought it was a good idea? I honestly don't even get it. You're building an outside network segment that is only for the purposes of getting you enough connectivity to VPN back into the inside. You may as well just put them directly on the inside. It's the same Active Directory credentials that can authenticate them to the Wi-Fi or the VPN. What have you done? You have made 2 encrypted tunnels instead of 1 and cut your data rate in half. And I mean, like, the iPhone can't exactly do fast encryption to start with, right? So, I mean, this is not helping anybody. It doesn't make sense. It's not even well thought out. It's super well documented, though. I can't count the number of network models I found, and they all had a company name on them, and I elected not to show one. But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even make any sense in the way we intended to design it. It doesn't actually segment squat. Literally nothing. But then, completely forget the fact that it doesn't work the way we intended to do it. It doesn't work for like 1,000 cases beyond that as well. There's too many different levels of connection to actually have that solid line and say this is inside and this is outside anymore. Okay? This is where it starts to get kind of fun. So, is the perimeter kind of blurry, or is it just entirely non-existent? So you've got cordless phones that are just kind of transmitting what you're talking into the airwaves. You can decode all of them. All of them. All of them. I'm not going to say I do, but I'm saying you could, right? Network printers. Who's got an HP network printer? Who noticed that it comes with Wi-Fi by default? Who noticed that the Wi-Fi is on by default? Who noticed that 37 printers are all part of an ad hoc network called HP Setup? I've seen that network design. It's great. You just connect to the ad hoc network HP Setup and you say, I want to print something, and like 37 printers respond to you. It's awesome. So if you're connected to the wired network and you've got a wireless access point offering services, and I connect to the wireless access point offering services, and the printer's basically a really cheap Linux box that never gets upgraded, bad. Bad. We'll go with bad. Smartphones. One of my favorite things, and I apologize, I'm a Pony employee, but I thought this was funny before I joined Pony, so I'm going to share it. The smartphones, whether it's a Pwn phone or a Pwn tab or any Android device that has got some really entertaining hackery stuff on it, the best thing in the world is you take this to work, and they say, oh yeah, you can totally get your corporate email on there. You just need to install my mobile device manager. And you say, oh sweet, no problem. You install the mobile device manager, and now you are authenticated on the network with your Android device and a full suite of attack tools. And I mean, battery life's not awesome, but I mean, I can do an awful lot in 4 hours before the battery dies. And that's if I'm going really hard. I mean, if I'm like kind of bored and leave the screen off a bit, maybe I could get 6. Almost a full workday just for my phone of hacking you to death. Maybe it took me an hour to get the MDM to work properly. That seems reasonable. Right? Forget the damage I could do with the phone as an attack platform. Which side of the perimeter is the phone on in the first place? If it's connected to my corporate network, and it's getting corporate email and things like that, obviously it's on the trusted side, right? But I could just switch the Wi-Fi from being a client to being an access point. I can connect my laptop to the access point that the cell phone's offering, and I can exfiltrate everything I want in 4G. So 10 seconds ago, I was inside the network as a trusted provider, and now I'm outside the network exfiltrating data as fast as humanly possible, which at 4G ain't half bad, right? So what is that device? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it trusted? It's got an MDM on it. It doesn't work, right? There's no proper definition for this at all. So whether it's a jailbroken or rooted phone with badness on it, whether it's got Wi-Fi turned on and you're using it to, you could be playing Angry Birds, or you could be going to fantasy football or Victoria's Secret or whatever you do during the workday on your lunch break. What about cloud technology? What's cloud technology mean? Cloud technology means that you've got this device on the inside of your network that is going to call out to the untrusted internet, download all of its configuration back down into your enterprise. I'm going to stop for just a second until you all start laughing. Catch up. This is awful. This is absolutely awful. We have this whole fantastic network design that depends on this secure perimeter, and literally the configuration of half of our security devices are being pulled from the untrusted side. One step worse, managed security equipment. What about when you're paying somebody else to manage your firewall or your data loss prevention system? You've got a device to protect you from bad things coming from the internet that pulls its config from the internet and then sends all the interesting data up to the internet for somebody else to read. One person still paying attention, and I appreciate that, miss. Work on the delivery, is that the problem? I have slept enough for one person in the last 3 weeks. One night or so, yeah. Thank you, Penn. I really appreciate that. Penn Jillette wants me to pimp his movie. Okay. So third-party managed gear, like managed infrastructure. But again, we're talking a lot about corporate stuff. Think back to your own house. What do you have at home that's managed by a third party? Anybody here have a cable modem? How about a Verizon Fios Action Tech router? Did you know that it automatically pulls firmware updates even though you tell it not to? I found that out. That was really, really cool. Yeah. It's not allowed on my network anymore. It's segmented into its own little spot. Yeah. But that's the problem, is there is no perimeter. This is not a blurred line at all to me. This is completely, absolutely gone. There is no trusted side of my network. There is no untrusted side of my network. I don't even implicitly trust single devices because that device could be compromised at some point, right? It's really not something safe to say, assume, design around, and yet we still keep pushing these ideas of, well, you just make a VLAN and firewall it off, and BSides says, I'm just going to stop there before I get myself into trouble. So, there isn't a perimeter. I'm super sad to see it go. I've been doing Wi-Fi for a while. Wireless technology in general has generally ruined our lives. No security makes any sense anymore. When we used to have like sweet BNC loops that we could connect all the computers to and you could tell if somebody cut into your network, that was a good spot to make a perimeter. You could make sense of that. As soon as all of this other wireless stuff started existing, it just doesn't work. We had a near comical conversation upstairs about this. Wireless goes through walls. Everything is wireless. Wireless is energy. Energy is physics. Physics just keeps on going and ruining your life, right? I mean, it's a transmitter. It goes as far as it feels like going, and it stops, and there's some kind of black magic that determines how large an antenna I can make it magically go farther. And I mean, there is no way to easily handle this. Again, silver film on the window guys aside. This is a very difficult problem, not just for enterprises, but for people in general. My phone is calling out to the internet right now, getting my emails, and my marketing staff is telling me that I probably should have prepared more for my talk. It's a really big problem. For instance, my company has a really interesting policy. There's no Bluetooth or Wi-Fi allowed to be used at conventions like this because, well, there's a lot of Bluetooth hacking gear out there. There's a lot of Wi-Fi hacking gear out there. those are bad. So instead of authenticating me to an access point and letting me go out through the firewalls and the protections that are available here, or, on the open Wi-Fi at this facility or the hotel or whatever it is, or even allowing me to connect to the trusted, you paid way too much for the internet at RSA internet through a wireless technology, 4G should be used because that's safe, right? 4G is totally safe. It's authenticated, it's encrypted, and I haven't even got on the punchline, folks. Give me a second. Paying attention, I appreciate that, but you're laughing too early. I'm trying here. Come on. Let me bow first. Jeez. Okay, so I want to say maybe 2010 was the first time it was publicly shown at a convention. I think Chris Pageant did ShmooCon and DEF CON in the same year, of putting up a fake cell base station and letting a bunch of phones connect to it. It was 2G, absolutely, certainly not 4G, although there was a 4G device found at ShmooCon this year. So things do advance over time. But if you notice, has your phone been going back and forth between 3G and 4G today? Mine has. Has it been going down to 2G? I haven't hit that one yet personally, but I notice a lot that my phone's going back and forth between 3G and 4G, and that's because the towers on 4G are so overloaded. At least so I keep telling myself. It's definitely not because somebody's spoofing a high-power 3G tower and jamming the 4G tower. That wouldn't happen. I'm going to be able to sleep tonight because nobody could possibly break into my phone via cellular networks because I'm the only one in the world that owns a Blade RF. Sorry? No. Actually, you should probably just not egg me on at all. That would be better. Right? So realistically, technology today is designed exclusively for convenience, with security being a complete and utter afterthought. Entirely. Right down to the security systems in your homes that protect you, that tell you when the windows are open or closed, right down to the garage door openers in your cars, right down to the fact that my Bluetooth watch uses the most insecure possible method of pairing rather than any of the sane ones that make perfect sense. Right? No one wants to have to deal with making these things secure by default because almost everything that we use today wasn't even designed for the enterprise space at all. It was mostly designed for the consumer space, and the consumer people don't want to deal with that, right? It was years, nearly decades, that we had Ethernet inside of businesses before people started having Ethernet networks at their house. But people had Wi-Fi in their house, and they went to work, and they're like, chained to a desk? What are you talking about? I'm going to pick up my desktop and take it to the conference room because that's more convenient. I don't want to lose my work. Well, I better get a laptop. That would be a little more convenient. And I'll just plug it in there. Well, I'm tired of plugging in. Let's just get Wi-Fi. But it wasn't designed for that. It wasn't designed for security. You started off with really wonderful encryption protocols like WEP, things like that. And, Wi-Fi has gotten a good bit better as long as you don't own an iOS product. It's reasonably secure, right? Don't get me started on Apple. Seriously, don't get me started on Apple. But otherwise, most things have actually improved for Wi-Fi. But almost every other wireless technology is literally considered a black magic of some type. It's all security through obscurity. Do you know that you can sniff Wi-Fi? Actually, wait, no, we're in San Francisco. That's still Ninth Circuit, right? So sniffing Wi-Fi is illegal because Wi-Fi isn't radio because the judge told me that. But back where I live in the real world, on the East Coast, you're allowed to sniff Wi-Fi because Wi-Fi is radio and that's allowed. Unless it's owned by the telco providers, they are specifically exempted. You're not allowed to monitor their traffic. So rather than using the Hack RF or the Blade RF or your $12 Realtek SDR to look at the fact that half of your text messages are unencrypted, you are barred from legally doing that. Okay? You are not allowed to monitor anything allocated to the telcos. No pagers, no cell phones, nothing like that. You're not allowed to modify a scanner to do it, blah, blah, blah. Right? Except them, yeah. Explicit exemptions for law enforcement and cell providers and whatnot for testing, obviously. But the point is not only is it security through obscurity, it's even worse, it's legislated security through obscurity. It is saying, not only are we just going to make this thing magic so you can't figure it out, we're going to tell you you're not even allowed to look at it. But we're totally sure it's secure. Don't worry, the guy at Verizon told me it's lightning fast and I have nothing to worry about. Yeah, trust us, we're law enforcement. Anybody else buy an I Am Psydragon shirt? I didn't say that. Right? It's a problem. It's a very big problem, and it's one that, quite frankly, I don't think all of us are nearly enraged enough about. I only slept 5 hours tonight and 3 the night before, so together that makes up 8, and I just can't really show how angry this makes me. Mad. This sucks. We all do this all the time, and we just don't even care because it's such an insurmountable problem, we choose to ignore its existence. And it is such an insurmountable problem that we choose to ignore its existence because we're completely defining things the wrong way. We're architecting networks the wrong way. We're caring about security the wrong way. What is the absolute first thing you need to do to secure what you care about? You need to find out what you have, for God's sake. Thank you, I'm not the only one, right? So forget this perimeter BS. You're randomly placing a line that I think mostly I've shown doesn't really exist except in your head. Start with visibility. Start with identifying what you care about, and then literally identify every possible thing you can. Network security isn't about my devices. It's not about, I bought these 800 laptops, they all run Windows, and I'm managing their patches, so I'm perfectly secure. Well, then you've got to worry about all the infrastructure. You've got to worry about the things that are on your network that you didn't mean to get on your network. You've got to worry about the fact that people went out and bought a printer and they left the Wi-Fi turned on. You've got to worry about all the people that had to buy an Apple iWatch on the first day. Yeah, you do. You really do. I can tell you, my phone is fully encrypted. It's got a strong passphrase on it, and I have ADB turned off. So I truly believe that if I go through security and the FBI pulls me off of a plane because I fly an awful lot and I say stupid things, I would have that phone completely secured from them for at least 13, 14 seconds until some schmuck text messaged me and said, "Yo, Zero, you land yet?" And my watch goes bzzz. And then they're like, "Oh-ho." And then they go through the buffer on this thing, which has got to be like 900 megabytes because it seems to have every email I've ever received stored in the buffer of my watch. Yes, I'm telling all of you this, but I'm going to punch the next person who touches it, I swear to God. Literally, I have a fully encrypted phone and all of my email is unencrypted on my wrist. Hold on. My name's Zero and I'm a hacker. It's been 37 seconds since my last text message. And I really should have stopped talking before I told you all how to pwn my email. But seriously, this is an enormous problem. We're keeping track of devices instead of data. We're drawing random lines in the sand and saying everything on this side is fine. And I promise you that it is not. And if it really is in your organization, wait about 30 seconds and then check again. Because it's not. If we're not looking for these things in real time, if we're not monitoring everything in the airspace, if we're not at least seeing where our data is going, there's no hope. There isn't. We need to be tracking what's critical. We need to be tracking everything we possibly can because it works for the NSA. And those guys seem to have it together. Right. Data exfiltration, they're definitely good at. And large data centers. See, it happened again. Hey, look at that. I have a fully encrypted phone. 900 megabytes of email is unencrypted on my wrist. Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, see? That's kind of a problem, isn't it? Every little thing, and then it goes right to my wrist. It's awful. So where do we go from here, right? I say we throw away all of the principles, all of the BS, all those poor kids in school that are learning the trade in the completely wrong way because they're being taught by people who haven't worked in the field for 30 plus years. I say we throw all that garbage away and we start focusing on what actually really matters. And honestly, I don't have a whole solution for you because this is a massive undertaking. It's a giant friggin' problem. But I think we start by identifying what we care about and getting as much visibility as humanly possible. I know I get bored and monitor as many things as possible, and I suggest all of you do the same. Does anybody else get a text message when their garage door opens? Yes! I'm not the only one. My wife said I was weird, but I told her I wasn't. That wasn't the joke. No, but seriously, I mean, a $12 RTL SDR and a little Raspberry Pi, and it sits in my garage, and it tells me when the power goes on and off, and it tells me every time my garage door opens. It also tells me if somebody does a replay attack. Does anybody else have a garage door intrusion prevention system at their house? Why am I the only one? Why is that a joke? Seriously, that's not funny. It's funny because I'm the only one. This is important. This is important. Everyone you know who buys a security system today, there's the nice, expensive box downstairs that has all the electronics and the smarts, and then there's the little box by the door that they touch their key fob to that unlocks and disables the alarm. And that box talks wirelessly over Z-Wave down into the basement. So you intercept that, and you replay it, and you can just disarm somebody's security system. So forget the fact that all the sensors are wireless. You can ignore that garbage. Just send the disable code. Saves time and effort, right? It's really important to just, be as lazy as possible and do the minimum possible. And that's what we've all been doing, isn't it? It really is. We said, okay, I learned in school, I set up a perimeter, I harden that perimeter, and I make sure that everything inside of it is trusted and we're cool. And as it turns out, you know that I'm not telling you anything new at all. I've managed to stand up here for 44 minutes and not say a damn thing you didn't know before I started talking, yet for some reason you feel worse now. And so I have done my job, and I would like to thank all of you for your attention. We need to care more. Yeah, I initially wrote it just to remember if I had closed my garage door or not, so I could just check my messages. And then I realized that I could check for replay attacks too, and I thought that was kind of awesome because I have one of those really bad rolling code systems, so you can just see if it's pushing the wrong number.
I was going to say, back in the late 90s on the cyberpunks list, there was a thread called How Many Cryptographers Does It Take to Secure a Garage Door Opener?
How many cryptographers does it take to secure a garage door opener? Clearly the answer is more than 0, and that's how many have attempted it so far.
Also, you mentioned compromised nodes and malware. I came into your talk a little bit late, but that definitely changed.
I gently touched on things like rooting your phone and having bad things on a completely authorized device, but same general idea goes, whether it's a rooted phone with, all kinds of attack toolkit on it that happens to be running the MDM agent and authenticating, or whether it's you are, who here listens to anything Jaded Security says? I'm a giant fan of his sticker collection, Don't Click Shit, which is completely ignored by, everybody. Malware is just absolutely rampant. People will be on a trusted and secure device and then they click on stuff and badness. And again, there is no way to say, here's my perimeter, here's good, here's bad. It just absolutely doesn't exist. Yeah, so looking at visibility of all the things is definitely where it starts, and then you have to start looking at each individual thing as it is. As I bring things into the enterprise, But really going about it by device is probably at some point going to be a failure. Identifying everything you can possibly see is great as a starting point because that gives you the ability to see what's connected to what to the best of your ability and where things are actually going. But it really ends with where's my data that I care about, what can access it, what has accessed it, and keeping a track of that. Because if everything is in some central server and you're trying to protect that, the person has to get to the data first. So if you're really letting everybody get, PII on their laptops and their doctors with iPads at the hospital that have full medical records and things like that, you need to know where your stuff is so that you know what your exposure is so that you know what to protect. There's never, you can't say, well, it's encrypted on the iPad, so it's fine. Okay, hold on. Phone's encrypted, right? And then we type in the password, and hey, look, here's all my data. So clearly it's decrypting everything in memory as long as I'm the user, right? So if I click on a website and there happens to be an Android browser exploit or a Chrome browser exploit, here it is running as the user. The user has the ability to transparently decrypt all of the data on the fly. So what exactly am I protecting with that encryption? Nothing. Literally nothing. If the device isn't off, it's not protected at all. So we need to keep track of where we put things, how they interconnect, and really get a better understanding of what our exposure is. And again, I think that the first step to that, and this is where I focus all of my work because I'm a layer 1 and layer 2 guy, is seeing everything you possibly can. Because if you don't even know what you're defending against, you definitely are doomed. So watching everything that happens on the network, building a map of what happens on the network. Who is passively listening to their network right now and building a network diagram off of it? At my office, at my house, at the hotel where I slept last night. Everywhere I go, every time I plug in, it's just kind of chilling there and telling me all the hosts on the network, their MAC addresses, their IP addresses, how much data that they've sent. It's all multicast. It's all free. I don't even have to do anything. It just comes to me when I connect. And you can see so much. But everybody's like, well, I deployed 4 computers. There's a 4-port switch. I'm probably fine. And they just completely put the blinders on and pretend like nothing could happen, even though literally every last one of us knows that's not true. So yeah, I really, again, maybe I'm biased, but I think visibility is the start. Don't run iOS. What should we run? A marathon away from places like this. Realistically speaking, most of my personal work is some kind of wireless related. The vast majority for the last 10 years has been Wi-Fi, and the last 18 months or so has been all kinds of other fun stuff. iOS has the absolute worst Wi-Fi implementation I've ever seen in my life. If you have a stored encrypted network and I put up a network with no encryption in the same name, it will connect. I could keep going with horror stories, but the fact of the matter is, it's not a bug. It is by design. It is because Apple thinks that you are literally too stupid to handle if it doesn't connect. They think that you might accidentally reset your router to default, yet somehow it keeps the same SSID, and you would just be devastated if it didn't magically auto-connect for you. So they make sure that you're as vulnerable as possible to things like Wi-Fi pineapples.
So, Android? Cyan again? Mobile?
Yeah, so what's the option on, BlackBerry, I wish I could say that still, but at the moment I can't do enough to make myself happy on the BlackBerry anymore. I've spoiled myself by having a phone in my pocket that I can drop networks at the drop of a hat, and I think that's super handy. I use Android personally. I also develop for Android, and I mean, not like on their team or anything, but I hack around on it a lot, and I like making random hardened builds and all kinds of fun stuff on Android. So, yeah, I mean, making it as close to sane as possible, but I mean, Android's got its problems, iOS has its problems, everything has its problems. The importance isn't finding all the vulnerabilities and fixing them. It's accepting the fact that absolutely everything we do is vulnerable and going from that as the starting point. Realistically, everything is owned, whether it's this second or the next second, or you really have to have patience and wait 3 more. Just consider absolutely everything to be broken and go from that as your starting point, because otherwise you are lying to yourself. And you'll be the only one that believes it. Yes, we should absolutely give everybody the skiff room. Most of my friends have built a skiff in their house. 509 locks aren't that expensive. And the silver window film, I've got a great guy upstairs at the wireless capture the flag that'll get you a good discount. And, cinder blocks are nice. They look at you a little weird when you ask them to put rebar and pour the concrete in the middle, but, Yeah, you could do the little pop your own skiff tent, yeah. That's where I check all my emails in my skiff tent in the backyard. Got a fiber optic line drop straight to it because you can't tap fiber optic since... Oh, wait. All right, I don't even know if there's a talk after me, but they flagged me a while ago. So if you want to chat, I'm upstairs doing the wireless capture the flag, and otherwise, thank you very much.